Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being on our program. Today's guest is Mr. Curt Hahn, and Mr. Curt Hahn has a very, very special hobby, activity, really a very historic project, as best as I can describe it. I'm going to let him tell us about it. Basically, what it is, the way I understood it, is he takes US flags and he flies them himself in different locations and he documents what he does. And the more interesting part about it is he mails his flags around the world and has them drawn up on flagpoles where people take pictures of it. That's just the intro issue here, because it gets more exciting as he shares the story with me. And we're going to find out his background, how he got started, why he does it, and his future plans for doing this even further. Mr. Hahn, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. My wife calls it an obsession.
Let's go back to square one. When did you begin this project and what inspired you to do it?
I retired from the U.S. Navy in 2001. And traditionally, you get a retirement flag. And they present it to you when you retire. Retire has a token of your service. What they don't tell you is you got to buy the flag. It's also, I don't use the word tradition, but for a lack of a better word of tradition, that you have that flag flown at your last duty station or your last duty stations. Well, that takes time. So I started actually in 2000, about a year prior, sent it out to different places that I had been to or stationed at or close to that. I said, would you fly my flag? And they typically send you a piece of paper, and I can grab one here, but I don't have one immediately handy. It was a certificate of where it's been. I thought, well, this is really cool. Now, nobody tells you that you have to do all this, but they'll give you the flag, in the certificate. But you got to make all this happen. When you retire, they typically give you a shadow box with all of your awards and medals in it. And you notice the flag here. That's pretty cool. I get a flag, And I thought, I want all that stuff. I spent 28 years in this outfit. And I want all my. And I soon realized that if you send a flag off to point A, you can't send the same flag to point B, because it takes time for flag A to come back. Well, one flag became two, which became so forth and so on. And that's how kind of the whole thing started. And when you've been in the military, you have friends that have been places who are stationed at other places. So hey, I'll fly, send me your flag. I'll fly it here in Japan, or we'll fly it here or there, or everywhere. And so I did that. And so it wasn't just local to where I was at, it was going worldwide. That's how the whole thing sort of started.
So how many flags are in the process of either going or being returned back to you now?
Right now, none. Right now, everything is either retired or at home. Matter of fact, we were cleaning out a closet yesterday and I found two more. Didn't even know I had, one of which is here. And you notice it's got it's already set to fly on board a ship somewhere, but it's not labeled or marked. So I'm not sure where it came from. And I got another one with Feinstein's name on it, but there's no record of where it's been. It was just in a box labeled Feinstein. I started off not labeling the flags on the header, but having the certificates. And then, matter of fact, you're the one who suggested marking the headers up as to where the flag has actually been. So there's a history of about 4 or 5, or maybe even longer years of no markings on flags. I have the record, but I can't tell you that flag went there.
How many locations would you say your flags have been at?
As of right now, at least 200. And I haven't finished documenting them all yet.
Now, does everybody, when you send it to somebody, do they always respond to you? We did it. Yeah. How do they prove that they did it? Or, do you request them to show you some kind of proof that
What
it was there?
what I do is, first off, I will call or email that person. I actually want to talk to somebody, saying make sure it's okay. I don't want to just send it off and have the janitor open it up and, yeah, that's nice, and you know. But I always send when you still have disposable cameras, and I say, if you'll take a picture and then send me some sort of and I use the word documentation, that it's been there. And I've had everything from a business card with the guy's name written on it to, cocktail napkins to some really nice certificates. You never know what you're going to get. And that's part of the fun. I've had people say, I'm not going to use your rinky-dink camera. We'll take digital pictures. Cool. But I don't want to burden somebody with, and you try to say, look, have fun with this and do what you want to do. I'm not going to lay out a specific anything, because I want it to be easy for them. And so I've had pictures of flags on flag poles. I've had pictures of people holding it. The staff at one of the air museums have the whole staff standing underneath the airplane, all kind of doing their. It's not that I don't care. It's part of that story.
Right. Well, you can't control how they hold it or who's available or, what they're doing. So you sort of leave them to their creativity.
Yeah. In some cases, they'll just take a picture of the flag and send it back. And then I got to figure out, okay, where,
The question that keeps coming up over and over again, why do you do this?
Because nobody else I know of does it. There's only two other people that I know of that do this. One of which is he's a retired Navy guy and he sells insurance in Texas someplace. And the other guy is a retired Army captain. He lives in Vegas, last I heard, but he dropped off the face of the earth 5 or 6 years ago, and haven't heard from him since.
So this is not really something you're doing for somebody else. You're totally doing it just for yourself.
I'm doing it for me because I'm a firm believer in armchair travel.
What does that mean?
Going on adventures where I'm not actually going someplace. There's places I'll never go to, places I'll never see, but I can honestly say my flag's been there. And you'll notice, for example, on this one, you'll see where it's labeled here. In this case, the Autry Museum and the Rio Hondo Radio Club Field Day, the Pat Museum, the Air Museum out in Palm Springs. Just because, I've been to those places, but I've had a flag fly at the flagpole at Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima. And that same flag came back to me and I sent it to Washington, D.C. And that same flag flew at the Iwo Jima Memorial, courtesy of the Marine Corps.
So when you take a flag and you contact somebody, you send it to them. I guess you have to send it through the military.
I send it generally through U.S. mail.
U.S. mail. So by the time it goes and gets there and returns back to you, it could probably be months.
Yeah, the longest was almost 8 months, because I sent it to a guy. He was over in Okinawa, and he was with a P-8 Poseidon squadron, Navy squadron, and they put it on a Poseidon aircraft and flew all over the Western Pacific. So it went from Okinawa to the Philippines to Australia to Guam, I don't know, half a dozen other places, and then eventually back to me. Well, that takes time to do all of that,
So somebody actually became responsible for not only making sure it was up there, but also to make sure you get it back. That's pretty cool.
What I do is I send I pay for the envelope in priority mail, so I get a tracking number, and then I put another another envelope in the original one with the return address. Postage is all paid, tracking number is all paid. So all they got to do is take the flag out and do their thing. put the camera and the flag and the certificate back in the package and send it off again. Again, want to make this as easy as possible.
So I'm imagining that there's really no end to this project.
No, there really isn't. The hard part sometimes is thinking, where next? You know, the Autry Museum, there's a guy in my radio club who works there, and he says, that sounds cool. Send it to me and I'll fly at the Autry Museum. Okay, cool. You know, the Patton, I had one flag flew out at the Patton Museum out in Scirocco Summit. And then as part of that project, I sent a flag to Europe to a guy, this Army captain, who flew it all over the Patton battle sites and the World War II cemeteries and Patton's grave site. And I gave that flag back and donated it back to the Patton Museum. You remember that because you were part of that show. And they were just surprised that here they had a story of Patton that they didn't have. And a couple months ago, we went back out to the Patton Museum. It's not on display anywhere, but okay, it's not on display anywhere. You know, I was kind of hoping that it would be, but you know, hey, it is what it is. But you know, I do it because there's a story to be told about where the thing has been. We recently just pulled out of Afghanistan. I've had a flag that's flown in Afghanistan. There's a whole story behind that. I don't know if you want to hear or not, but there's an outfit up in Arroyo Grande, California, called Welcome Home Military Heroes. And the son, who happens to be the co-founder, was being deployed to Afghanistan with the Army. So I took the flag and mailed it off with another side story, but mailed it off to Afghanistan. I actually mailed 2 flags. Anyway, mailed it off and kind of forgot about it. And when it came back, we were going to Texas to see my son. And we stopped at this ghost town off the interstate to do a little radio show about this ghost town. Come to find out, the son who flew the flag in Afghanistan was stationed at the Army base just north of where my son was living in Texas, heard the radio show from the ghost town, called me on the phone. This was the day after Christmas, drove down from where he was at with his wife and friend. We had breakfast at the hotel. And I said, by the way, who got the second flag? He said, my buddy right here, Rocky, got it. But who would have ever thought that this flag would lead to a story, which would lead to the guy getting the second flag in Texas? You know,
That must have been that must have been really exciting.
it really was. It really and truly was, because the flag takes a story unto itself
Right.
that you can't reproduce. And you never know where that story is going to lead you.
Now let me sort of come up to date. Somewhere you shared with me a story where the flag was on, don't quote me, Air Force One or
Oh,
a
yeah.
helicopter. And there was a story behind that one. I think you shared that with me on a one-to-one. Would you like to bring us into that story?
Well, the story goes like this. I had the Marine recruiter from Montebello. He and I were talking one day, and he says, I got a bunch of friends on the East Coast. Would you like your flag flown there? Sure, go for it. So he took the flag and sent it off. And I got this really nice letter back from the Marines after he told me first, then I got this letter from the Marines saying, well, we got good news and bad news. Your flag is gone. It was flying back from Maine to Maryland, I think. Anyway, somewhere between Maryland and Virginia, the thing flew out of Marine Corps One and disappeared off into the great wilderness. But your flag had been to, and they had a list like 15, 20 places of where the flag had been, you know, signed off and the whole bit. So I had a history of where it was before it disappeared. Hey, I took great comfort in that, knowing the flag at least died a glorious death.
I was going to say we have to play taps for that particular flag. Yeah.
But it was really cool to get this really nice letter. And it ended with, we will replace your flag. Okay, not terribly worried about. Well, about a year later, the new recruiter comes into LA So we were having coffee when I says, hey, by the way, and I showed him this letter. I says, but I'm not mad or upset, but can I get another flag? And he says, that sounds like a challenge. So about 3 weeks later, I get this, he brings me this flag. I call it a garrison flag. It flies over the main base. And this flag's got to be 10 foot by 20 foot. This flag is huge. I mean, I could use it for a bedspread. I mean, this thing is huge. 2 men and a boy to carry this thing. This flag is, huge. And he says, well, I got good news and bad news. I says, what's that? He says, this flag flew over Marine Corps Base, Quantico, Virginia. This is like where the Admiral or the Marine Corps General, but I don't have any piece of paper that says that's where it's been. But here it is. Here's your flag. I mean, what? I don't even know a flagpole big enough to fly this thing. It's like, what do I do with this thing? I was touched. Don't get me wrong. I was just, flabbergasted. So I had him sign it, and then the former recruiter came back and he signed it. And that flag means a lot to me because they took that extra step, and I got this humongous flag, that had been, over Quantico, Virginia. But the original letter, it was all documented. Of course, I'd hate to have been the Marine responsible for the flag flying out the door, but hey, that's another, But it happens. I've had flags disappear. I mean,
Sure. I'm surprised you get most of them back in a way.
Yeah. Well, my biggest fear is somebody coming up to the front porch and stealing a package, and then, what's this, and throw it in the trash and move on. That's my biggest fear.
Sure.
Uh,
If you have two places you sort of have in mind where you still want to send your flags and have them put up,
Yeah.
exhibit it there, and then send back to you, can you think of two places that you haven't sent it to, but you're planning to?
CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. And I think it'd be really cool to get it flown over Area 51, but that's not gonna happen.
Okay, let me ask the question then. Realistic places.
The CIA headquarters would be one, and I can't think of a second one off the top of my head.
How about NSA?
Or that'd be the second one.
I mean, if you're gonna go all the way, you might as well
No.
go.
I mean, well, you've heard of Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs, the head of
Sure.
NORAD.
Sure.
I sent it to them, and they said, yeah, okay. So I got a picture of the flag inside the mountain with their visitor headquarter thing. And they're holding it up. And they didn't send me a certificate, but they sent me a rock. But hey, it was there, I have proof that it was there.
Could something like this be done where a flag is flown over the White House?
Yeah, I've had it flown over the White House.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, how about Congress?
I've had it flown over the Capitol building.
Wow.
US Capitol. Matter of fact, this one, it says Feinstein. I can't tell you. Yeah, getting it flown over the Capitol is easy. They have people, that's all they do is raise and lower flags all day long,
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
That's all they do. There's a form you fill out, you send them the flag, it goes up the pole and right back down the pole and back in the box, and away it goes.
I would have thought that one would have been the most difficult, and then all the others simpler, but it seems to be the other way around.
No, the hardest part is you have to find the person. So sometimes you have to play the phone tag because you don't know who to call. I've called state capitol gift shops, and they've done it for me. In some cases, it was state capitol police, and other cases it was the building custodian. I mean, you have to play the game to find out who's who.
Who's willing to take the responsibility for doing
Yeah.
it?
I called one state. I won't mention which one, but basically, we'd love to fly your flag for you, and thank you for donating it. It's like, no, I want the flag back. Well, why do you want us to fly it? So I say it had been there. we can't keep the flag. I'm thinking, okay, never mind. Never mind. Thank you very much. But,
I'm not sending it to be to lose my flags.
yeah. Well, I've only had 2 places that have actually said no, they wouldn't do it. One of which is a very interesting story, but I don't know if you want to hear it or not.
We're gonna have to bring you back on that story because I
But,
know it's an extensive one.
yeah. But most places, if you talk to the right person, that's why I always like to call or email first, because I say sometimes you gotta,
Work the magic.
yeah. I called an Air Force base up in one state, and who do I talk to? Well, you got to talk to pass an ID, and they passed me on. I eventually found the person, and they said, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll do it, but you better send it like now before the snow starts, and all you're gonna see is an airplane, covered with snow." And it still took. Then COVID hit. It still took 6 months for the flight to come home because everything was online, offline. Your flag may be, who knows who it is, but I got it back.
So, we're getting close to the end of the show, unfortunately, but I'm going to give our viewers contact information if they would like to start the same project as you have. But let me ask this question.
Well,
When you talk to someone and you say, in most cases,
Mhm.
different people, different reactions. In most cases, when you tell them, I'd like you to, post my flag and then send it back to me, what's the reaction you get from individuals?
I've had everything from sure, no problem to you're the first person ever asked that question, to why in the world would you want to do that?
This
Or
is a loony bin calling here.
yeah, like kind of fruitcake is this, or sometimes they don't know and they have to go hunt the person to make that happen. I said, but I want to actually either talk to or email somebody so I can address it to that person. Now, it may not come back from that person. It may come back from somebody. I sent it to Colorado, state capital there. And the lady said, well, nobody's ever asked that question. So I'll take care of this personally.
Oh, that's nice of her.
That was very nice of her. And she took care of it personally for me,
I guess you would welcome the pictures of the individuals, whoever did it, to sort of send you pictures of themselves as well.
I've had that, and I have a Facebook page called Hahn's Traveling U.S. Flag. I try to post all the pictures. The problem is I'm using a film camera, so sometimes the processing, getting the pictures back takes longer, and the flag has long since been there, done that. Because I'm not sending a digital camera through the mail. But I post pictures of where it's been. I try to enclose a, thank you to, so-and-so for making this happen. But I always send them the link. Matter of fact, I sent the flag down to a Kwajalein missile range, which is some rock out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where they launch all the ICBM test rockets out to. And they wrote me up in their monthly newsletter. But they were very excited about doing it, and then again, that's part of the fun,
Has any reflex been Diego Rivera?
Down to where?
Diego Rivera Island out there off India. I think there's a U.S. base down there.
Oh,
I can't think of it.
Diego Garcia.
Garcia, thank you.
Yeah, it's actually been there.
Oh yeah, I can't think of anything more obscure than probably that one.
That took a lot of
Arctic, the Arctic, and Antarctica. Those would also be.
Yeah, well, those are hard also. I've sent several emails to Guantanamo Bay, Antarctica, CIA headquarters. There's a couple others, and I don't get any response whatsoever. Even nope. At least a no would be a,
You can document that.
Yeah, I can document that. So sometimes, the emails change, the whoever changes, the don't bother us, we'll ignore, who knows. But I'm not going to sweat, and worry about people who say no. It just isn't. There's too many other stories to tell,
Right. So give us again your Facebook page for this wonderful project of yours.
It's called Hahn's U.S. Traveling Flag, and it's on Facebook. And I can't give you the actual URL, but if you go to Curt Hahn or Curt Hahn on Facebook, that'll take you there. Hahn's U.S. Traveling Flag.
Do you have an email you want to give out that sort of people inviting them to, in case they have more questions about what you're doing?
OSCSSW@juno.com. OSCSSW@juno.com. And again, as I tell people, I want to make this as easy as possible. I had people contact me and says, "Are you that crazy guy who flies the flag? Send it to me and I'll fly it for you." Again, it's part of that story, and sometimes the flag takes off on its own adventures. I sent it somewhere and it went from where it came back to Florida to California, floated around LA for 4 days, back to Florida, to New York, I think it was, back to California. And I was tracking all this and going, sometimes it just goes off on its own.
Like you said, it's armchair travel. The flag does a heck of a lot more miles than you do.
Oh yeah, I wish I had frequent flyer miles for this, but I got to tell you one quick story before we leave.
Sure.
This was the flag that I retired with. And this flag ties my family together. It's the one I retired with. It's been to my dad's gravesite, my uncle's gravesite. My mother held it at the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame Museum in Colorado Springs. It's been to the gravesites of friends of mine. This flag goes nowhere unless I go with it. I won't fly it anywhere unless I'm standing there, because if it's gone, then it's my fault. But I'm not going to mail it off to have it get lost in the mail or someplace else. And then I say, when a flag gets all the header filled in, you can't replace it. There's just too much history on that flag. And that's when I then retire it, and I won't fly it again unless I happen to be there, because you can't replace it. And I've had people tell me, well, it's just a flag. Not when it's been
around the world.
Again, yeah. I've had flags over Europe, Diego Garcia, the Western Pacific. Sometimes, the flag will take off on its own little, because one thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, I've had it flown in all fighters, 15 flags minimum that I have. And they've been to all 50 states. They've been to all the territories except American Samoa. That's the only one I'm missing, is American Samoa. I've got everything else. I got rocks out in the Pacific, belonging to fish and wildlife. But by God, my flag's been there. The only one I'm missing. Anybody in American Samoa, please, I want to fly my flag there. I've had it flown from state capitals to the VA clinic at Parsons, Kansas, just out in front of the sign. But it's been to Kansas,
There you go.
It's the adventure that they're doing, and it's hard to been to places I'll never be, but I can at least enjoy the adventure.
That comes across when you're telling the story of your different flags and your different adventures. And not only that, you also got to talk to different persons in different places, and I'm sure there were secondary conversations about how's it over there, how you doing, etc., and learning about different places in the world.
Well, years ago, not that long ago, North Korea was threatening to nuke one of our aircraft carriers off the Korean coast. Well, come to find out that one of my Eagle Scouts was stationed on that carrier at the time they were threatening to nuke it. So I sent him a flag, not knowing all else was taking place. So they had it flown over the Carl Vinson off the coast of Korea, someplace. But the most interesting part of the story was the flag I sent them disappeared. They sent me back one of the battle flags, one of those great big battle flags. It wasn't the one I sent them, but I got this really cool. I mean, this thing is like huge, you know, it's not as big as but the battle flag, you know, and because my Eagle Scout made that happen, you know, and it's like, okay, I lost the flag, but I got this really cool. You can't tell that story, you know. And then I have I don't want to use the word diary, but for lack of a better word, a journal that I keep with all the side stories and the places these flags have been, and you know, this flag's been to those places, and you know, conversations, and you can't make this stuff up. You know, that's the cool part. I would remember they would say we covered World War II in history class. Took us 4 days. We covered the entire war. I'm thinking, I got more time flying my flag at World War II sites than you talked about the entire war, you know. Well, that's not important. I had it flown up. I took it with me. They wouldn't fly it. But I got a picture of it up the DMZ off North and South Korea. But they wouldn't let me actually fly at the DMZ. We had to kind of, you know, hang back at the corner someplace, you know. But there's a chunk of, if I might preach here, there's a chunk of history that's not being taught. So I would have these pictures of my flag up around the classroom there. You know, I realize there's a chunk of history these kids aren't being taught, you know, but enough of that.
Well,
You know.
you keep history alive through this, but more than anything, you just keep our focus on how many places there are in the world that we have basis on.
Yeah.
And also all the places that people you've talked to. And I'm sure with each individual, there's always a little tidbit of story or information being exchanged just simply in the conversation. You know, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but, you know, I wish you continued success on the project and that you never run out of places to keep sending them on. And, you know, you mentioned that maybe it's been out to 200 places. You know, next time we do the show, hopefully it'll be in the thousands as well.
Well, again, I have a binder. It's about yay thick with all the places that before I start documenting on the computer that I still got to go through. It just takes time,
but it just seems like you're doing a project out of really emotional love of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm hoping. The cool part is if somebody watches this show and goes, "Wow, that's cool," or better yet says, "I wonder if I could fly that flag." Hey, I live in American Samoa. Send me your flag. You know, no. Or I work at the CIA. Send me your flag. I'll run up the flagpole.
No, I'm not sure they're going to say that, but I get your drift out there.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm learning as we're closing the show is that fundamentally somebody can go to a flag store, buy a flag if they don't have one for whatever reason, and they can actually start walking down the street and put it in front of the library and says, take a picture of me here and start that process. It could be a local situation where there happened to be a flagpole, and then move on and just keep sending it to different places and see who you talk to, where it can go.
Well, the city of El Monte has a Statue of Liberty in front of the city hall.
Oh, yeah.
So during the pandemic, lockdowns and all this other nonsense, my wife and I drove out there one time. She parked the car and I stood out there and held it up, you know, snap, 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 took the pictures. I took that same flag and I sent it to the Statue of Liberty in New York, and they flew it over the Statue of Liberty in New York. And then we went out to Vegas, and of course they got the Statue of Liberty on the Strip.
Yeah.
But you can't park anywhere. It was 105 degrees outside. There was no parking. So I got a picture of nah, we're not going to do that. But it was part of the story, you know.
It's an adventure.
Yeah. And the adventure, and this is the part that I tell people, the adventure is unique to whoever is doing this. It doesn't have to be the state capitol. It doesn't have to be a monument. It doesn't have to be, it's whatever Winslow, Arizona, they have a small 9/11 memorial out there that we happen to drive by. So I got a picture of me, you know, out in Winslow, Arizona. I mean, I never got a certificate. I never got nothing except me of a, you know, picture holding it.
That was your certificate.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's what you make of it that makes it the fun part.
And it sounds like it's a lot of fun for you.
It is. I've been doing it now, what, 21 years? It does take time.
Everything takes time.
You know, it's nothing you're going to accomplish today. You know.
But there's always that new place you want to send your flag to.
Yeah, well, it's like the Kenneth Hahn supervisor building in downtown LA, the head of county government.
Right.
Well, my uncle was Kenneth Hahn, not the Kenneth Hahn, but Kenneth
Same
Hahn,
name.
same name. And so I've been, again, that's one of those places I just haven't checked off the list yet, was who do I get a hold of to actually fly my flag at that building, you know?
Right.
Or better yet, can I go down there the day they do it and go, you know? I just haven't done it yet, so it's
on your bucket list for
on
your
the
flag.
bucket list. Yeah, it's just one of these places.
Well, Mr. Hahn, I have to sign off,
Alright.
but I congratulate you on your project. I applaud what you're doing. I know that you've gotten a lot of energy, a lot of thrill, a lot of stories behind it. Every time we meet over coffee, you know, you share with me a new story, and I'm never dumbfounded about how many places, you know, you continue to send this out to. And
Yeah.
so I wish you continued success in what you're doing. And
Thank you.
keep sending them out. And again, I'm glad you invited everyone to join in, follow your flag episodes, and also to contact you as well to find out
Yeah.
more about how they can get started as well.
Well,
So
I know, again, for those either in the military or veterans, it's a unique gift to yourself and to your loved ones that can't be replaced. Can't be replaced.
well, neither can you. You can't be replaced either, Mr. Hahn.
My wife says I can be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hahn. I look forward to having you in future shows as well.
I look forward to it always. So, yeah.
Take care of yourself, okay? And as a friend of mine says in Canada, stay negative right now with this COVID issue.